Well, the abrupt ouster of Sam Altman as the CEO of OpenAI on the 17th of November has set off a series of events that have culminated in the return of Altman to the corner office at the company he founded and with the newly curated board of his choice. Sam Altman was ready to join Microsoft with co-founder Greg Brockman, with most employees from OpenAI, which has left lawmakers wondering if they can really rely on visionary leaders and influential companies to keep us safe without regulation. Altman may have reclaimed his throne at the frontier of the AI world, and while the whirlwind saga that played out on social media lasted 5 days, it certainly left us with questions of governance at both the management and board level. The turmoil at OpenAI has also raised questions on complex corporate structures. This has also cast a spotlight on the dynamics of the founder power, the role of investors, and the significance of employees as equal stakeholders in the quest to build businesses of the future. In this case specifically, there are also questions on the power OpenAI wields on the global artificial intelligence architecture. The upheaval underscores the adage, with great power comes great responsibility, echoing Attorney General Merrick Garland, who said in his remarks on the Binance matter that corporations only act through individuals who run them. End of quote. Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shereen Bhan. Joining me today to discuss the implications of the OpenAI saga is Sanjay Nath, the co-founder and managing partner at Blume Ventures. Also with me straight from the Valley, Khare, partner at Lightspeed, and Rajesh Sawhney, the founder and CEO of GSF Accelerator. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Now, Khare, let me come to you first, only because you're in the Valley, so closest to the action geographically, quite literally. What do you make of what has transpired over the last 5 days?
Hi, Shereen. Thanks for having me on. Look, I think a lot of us are viewing the Twitter feeds and sort of the Whisper network and sort of reacting to things. So it's wouldn't be right to speculate. But I think the main lessons that we're drawing from this echo a little bit of what you said. There is discussions to be had about innovation in the AI world versus safety. I think there's discussions to be had on corporate governance and structures, government regulation, and then finally the role of open source models versus proprietary models. I think these are 4 areas that sort of got highlighted in this last few days, and people are on different sides of this debate in these 4 areas, and it's worth talking about.
Sanjay, to your mind, what have been the big lessons to take away from the OpenAI saga?
Sure. So, Shereen, this is not a new issue per se, right? If you look at this dynamic between, like, let's say, the board and founders and the tech talent, it's only come to the fore more because it's Sam. Just to begin, sort of, Thanksgiving in the US, just to you use a pun, there's no alternative man, right? It's Altman, in that sense. I think, nothing can be taken for granted. What has come to the fore here is that the stakes are very high because of the impact of generative AI, the use cases. You look at all the large companies taking positions, right? It's Anthropic and Google as DeepMind, and of course, Microsoft has such a big position in OpenAI. I think what was unexpected and not fully calculated is the impact of talent, the tech talent. The fact that the stakes are so high and that the employees were, let's say, loyal to Sam in this case was perhaps not seen in this chess move. So I think like Dave rightly said, the lessons to draw on is that when you make these decisions, it's complex. There are many moving parts. There are conflicts, there are disclosures, there are other board, there are other not-for-profit board positions. All this has to come into the fore, and clear communication is needed. And that's what a board's responsibility is, right? That you've got to get it all there and weigh the benefits and the risks. So I think it's not an easy answer. It's a very important dynamic, but this will bring to the fore even more importantly communication and disclosures that will be warranted in many future cases.
But Rajesh, on the role and the responsibility of the board in this case specifically, one of the board members actually saying that firing Altman would destroy, or in response to the concern that firing Altman would destroy OpenAI, said that that would actually be consistent with the mission of the company, with the charter of OpenAI. Now, that's a pretty astounding statement to make. Yes, OpenAI was founded with a certain charter, with a certain mission of universalizing AI for the benefit of humanity. But for the board to take a position that goes as far as to say, we don't really care and we owe no explanation for our action, how do you read that?
Yeah. This is, Shereen, in my mind, OpenAI is not a company, it's an extremely conflict-ridden organization. And I will classify the conflicts in 3 buckets. One is there is a non-profit parent, which has been constituted in 2015, and there is for-profit child. And that's a very complex relationship to manage in itself. And we've seen across the country many difficult manifestations and also a lot of successful examples where it's being managed well, including Tata's. Then there is a second issue of a celebrity CEO who has been brought in, who rightly feels he's created, 100 billion value, and probably not the love from the board or maybe even the compensation that he deserves. So there is that angle also, which I call commercial angles. And the third is a larger context, which I think they've also raised. So there is that narrative across the world that we need to protect humanity against singularity, universalization of AI. And I think clearly the board was constituted with that mandate. The constitution of board reflects that. Versus once you have gone into bet with Satya Nadella and Microsoft, there is a pressure to commercialize and commercialize in many different ways in which certain compromises have been made, which are usually made in the cases of startups. And history of Microsoft will tell you that they've always released half-baked products and they've been successful at it. So if you see these 3 buckets leading to many different conflicts, and top of it, I think it was the responsibility of Sam to either constitute the board that reflects the changing reality or have a communication which was broad and open enough. I think he failed there, in my view. So there has been a communication failure. And then there is a drama part of it, the way it gets manifested. There is an American way of sacking CEO without communication. There is an employee revolt. And then there is Satya factor, right? And clearly Satya was 2 steps ahead of the board. Board comes out as a naive board which had not thought through the consequences of its action. They brought in a CEO in a hastily manner. First the CTO of the company, then they got another one, and they just had no idea that Sam had so much of love from employees. And then there was a dubious role by Ilya, who first played one way and then played second way. So clearly board cannot not own responsibility of failing such a large mission-driven organization.
Sanjay, let me come to you now with the point that was being made by Rajesh, that can this corporate structure continue, or are we likely to see the ruptures, the friction, the pressure points and the pain that we've seen through this saga emerge once again unless this issue is settled?
Sure. By the way, Dave and Rajesh are both dear friends. I really like the way Rajesh, he was president of Reliance Entertainment. And I like the way also he characterized some of this. I saw an interesting tweet that said, move over Game of Thrones and Succession, right? This battle is playing out now. So this is interesting. Shereen, I think, I think of this as concentric circles or Venn diagrams. There's the board, there is Sam and his team, Ilya and Meera and everyone. And then there's the tech talent. If you hear this term of the 10x engineer, and that's nowhere truer in AI. If you look at the salaries that are being bandied about, because this is going to be game-changing, correct? You go back to a YC batch, or even all of us investing in this. I think this was not calculated that where the team's allegiances and the alliances would lie. So I think if somebody deconstructed and unpacked all of this, you'd have to think that what is the larger goal? The larger goal is obviously to make an impact. At the same time, there are privacy issues, right? There are so many other issues, and you have to weigh the benefit and costs of everything, and also different constituents. In one sense, the employees basically said yes. They may have been conflicts, and there may have been disclosures, and there may have been sort of, I'm using the word improprieties. But if you're really trying to change the world, like let's say Musk is, then the world is also changed by half crazy people, right? And Sam is that. So I think you can't make sudden moves, and I think the ideal way should have been to take into consideration everybody's perspectives. Yes, here's a rap on the hand. Come out and apologize, and you do this, but don't. Sacking is something else, right? It's a drastic step. So I think maybe it was a chess game that unfolded, in 2 seconds versus 2 minutes. But I'm not saying that anybody is blame free. But in this high stakes game, you've got to take in all the benefits and the risks and compile it all together.
So in this high-stakes battle of innovation, and we're trying to change the world, and so we will redraw boundaries, and we cannot be accountable to anybody but ourselves, and so on and so forth. Are we perhaps, is there need for supervision? Is there need for regulation? Does this now bring back to fore the debate on this is too large for companies to self-regulate, or voluntary code of conduct, and so on and so forth? Governments need to step in.
Yeah, I think on the regulatory front, we saw the executive order from President Biden, I think it was 2 weeks ago, which sort of, I think, struck the right tone between allowing innovation to occur and preventing regulatory capture to occur from the larger and better financed incumbents and companies in this space. So I think that was good. I think I don't want to mix, at least personally speaking, I don't want to mix what happened at OpenAI with anything around breaking the law. I don't think there was any such context when it comes to
no, absolutely.
OpenAI.
I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that that the reasons for Sam's ouster had anything to do with breaking the law. I'm trying to make the larger point about this tendency of saying, everything under the garb of innovation and disruption goes, and we're not accountable to anybody, and we don't require any kind of supervision. That culture or that thinking, that attitude, perhaps requires consideration.
It does, and there's been a healthy debate in Silicon Valley here between those 2 points of view, between sort of heavy regulation and completely open innovation. And as I was saying, I think there's a good tone being struck in the middle there. I think the other related battle that's playing out, and we should remember OpenAI didn't start last week, and this is not all that it's done, this sort of drama, right? It started a long time ago, and I think the OpenAI Dev Day that happened a couple of weeks ago was actually a big signal to where this space is going in terms of the competition between proprietary models like an OpenAI and open source models like a Llama or a Mistral or in India an AI for Bharat, for example. And I think that is going to play out as well. What OpenAI's Dev Day showed us, if I could point that out for 1 second, is that commercial models actually might be better from a performance perspective and cheaper relative to all the open source models out there, which is not what the world was expecting a year ago. We all thought open source would win in a big way. So I think that's interesting. And what that showed us was that because these closed source or proprietary models might be cheap and better performing, the application layer on top really opens up. So actually the potential and the impact of AI really dramatically expanded after OpenAI Dev Day. I think that's what we are excited about here at Lightspeed. So I think there'll be healthy competition between lots of different models and LLMs out there. And I think that's all good for the state of innovation at the application layer for consumers and businesses. So that's sort of how we are looking at this. It's sort of somewhere in the middle. It's not overly regulated. It's not a complete open sort of space for anybody to do something that's truly harmful.
We are going to take a quick break here on Young Turks and continue our conversation with Sanjay Nath, Khare and Rajesh Sawhney on the lessons to take away from the OpenAI saga. That and more when we return.